RobisBored here, bringing you our second installment of What We Eat. This one goes out to Analog. You've been asking for this recipe for a long time, so we're going to do it. Today we will be making our family's traditional red sauce for pasta. Let's get started. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is prepare the vegetables that we need to start the sauce. Always make sure you're using a sharp knife because it's the dull knives that cause injury. Now if you don't cut all the way through and you leave a little bit of an edge there, you can peel back. Makes removing the skin a lot easier. Start by cutting our onion in half. And then we're just going to dice it down. We're going to repeat with the other half. We like a lot of garlic in our sauce, so about 6 to 8 cloves of garlic, and this is how you peel the skin. Give it a smash. I'm going to smash them all down, get them nice and flat. And then we're going to give it a quick chop. Take our fresh basil and we're going to do what is called a chiffonade, which is just a fancy French term for rolling it up. And cutting it. Now I find the easiest way to do that is to stack them one on top of the other. Can do a bunch at one time. When it comes to basil, I use anywhere from about 10 to 16 fresh basil leaves. Going to prep the cans, get the cans open. I like to use typically whole tomatoes, a little bit of crushed tomatoes, and then a little bit of tomato paste. Automation, you gotta love it. Always make sure when opening cans that you clean the top off first, just in case the can dips into the inside of the can. Now what I'm going to do is with the peeled tomatoes here, the whole peeled tomatoes, I'm going to put them in a bowl here. And of course you have your hands are washed. You're going to give your whole tomatoes a little bit of a squeeze. Break them up into chunks. You don't want it really fine, you kind of want it chunky. Now of course this is personal taste, so if you want to avoid this step, just get the crushed tomatoes and you don't have to worry about getting your hands all nasty. This is old school style though. Alright, so now we're going to start making our sauce. We're going to put our pan on about a medium heat. And we're not going to be stingy on the olive oil because that is a good percentage of the flavor. We're going to get our pan hot, and typically we use 2 types of meat which are going to go in to add to the flavor. Traditionally it was cheap pork, be it a shoulder, spare ribs. Today we will be using boneless short pork ribs for added flavor. Our other meat, of course, being a sweet Italian sausage. You can do a hot Italian sausage. My kids don't like to eat anything that's hot, so we go with the sweet. And what we're looking for is some color, a little brown, as well as some rendering of the fat. You don't want to add too much meat or really anything to your pot when you're using oil, because you will reduce the temperature of the oil and it won't cook. It will just sit there. So as the short ribs become done, we're going to rotate them. And then make some space for the sausage. Once we get some nice color on all the sides, we're going to pull it out, make some space for everything else that's going in. Once our meat is finished cooking, we will begin with our vegetables. We'll start off with the garlic. That only takes about 15 seconds for it to do. And then we're going to add our onions. Now what you're going to notice with once you put the onions in is the pan's temperature reduces, and what's going to happen is the onions, the acid in the onions is going to start pulling the brown texture up off of the bottom, because that's where our flavor's at. I'm going to cook the onions until they are translucent in color. Then we're going to start adding our tomatoes. Going to mix everything together really nice and then bring it all to a boil. The tomatoes as well as the tomato paste and the sauce will remove the rest of the font off the bottom of the pan. So I'm just going to separate the sauce into two pots in order to incorporate the meat back into the sauce without it overflowing. Going to add the rest of our ingredients, which is the chiffonade basil, and then we are going to add some salt and black pepper to taste. We are then going to stir everything into the sauce to get it all incorporated, and then we are going to let it come to a boil. Once you see it come to a boil, we're going to give it a stir, and then we're going to let it simmer on very low heat for about 2 to 3 hours. Okay, so it's been a couple hours now, and our sauce should have reduced. So you want to give it a little taste, see what it might need. Okay. I'm going to add about a teaspoon of fresh dried basil. Just a little bit more salt. Okay. So make sure you stir everything up real good. Get it all incorporated. Then we're going to start our water, so cold water, you're going to put it on high. And then you're going to salt it like it's the Mediterranean. And we're just going to let that sit. Today we are using penne. So when your water is a rolling boil, you're just going to dump it all in. Going to give it a stir for a few seconds so that it doesn't stick. Now that our sauce is done, we're going to take the meat out of it. I'm just going to combine these two now. And then part of the reason that we don't put a whole lot of salt in at the beginning is because to finish this off, we're going to add some Parmesan cheese. And just incorporate that in, stirring. The reason we turn it off is because we don't want the cheese to burn to the sides of the pan. And of course, one little trick to take away any acidity is to add a little bit of sugar. Just let that sit while we wait for our noodles to finish cooking. And the noodles, it's about 9 to 10 minutes for al dente. We're going to try it. Set the sauce on the side. As well. Okay, our penne is done, and what you want to do is you always pour it away from you. Now we're just going to plate it up. A little bit of shaved Parmesan on top. And there you have it.